Welcome to Bookhaven. Bringing stories to life, one book at a time. In today's video, let's talk about the book, Melania, a memoir by Melania Trump.
Okay, so today we're diving into something pretty fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
Melania Trump's memoir, Melania.
Right.
And, we always like to go beyond just the surface level. And I think this book is kind of perfect for that.
I agree. I mean, it's a really interesting choice of format for a memoir.
Right. You see the cover and you think, elegant coffee table book, beautiful photography.
Exactly.
And you might even wonder, wait, is this really a deep dive into her life, or is it more about image?
Yeah, it definitely makes you think about how presentation can influence perception.
For sure. So we dove in, right? Excerpts, reviews, all that good stuff, trying to pull out, the most interesting bits for you.
Definitely.
And I gotta say, it's quite the journey, from like growing up in Slovenia to, bam, First Lady of the United States. Pretty wild.
Yeah, no, you're right. Not exactly your typical path to the White House.
Not at all. And on top of that, we found some pretty intriguing things about her beliefs, personal beliefs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, some stuff that might even surprise you, especially when it comes to like certain policies and stuff.
Interesting. Can't wait to dig into that.
We'll get there. But first, I think it's important to lay the groundwork, right? I mean, her story's unique, right? Born and raised in Slovenia, has a whole modeling career before she even meets Donald Trump. I mean, how often does that happen?
Right. Definitely not your average First Lady backstory.
Exactly. So I'm curious, from your perspective, how do you think all that, her background and everything, how do you think that might have shaped, her perspective on things?
That's a really good question. I mean, it definitely adds this whole other layer to her story, doesn't it? You can't just ignore that.
No, absolutely not. And speaking of her story, the memoir goes into how meeting Donald Trump back in '98 was like a total turning point for her.
Makes sense.
And from there, it's this whole whirlwind, right? Life in the public eye, becoming a wife, then a mom, and, all under this crazy amount of scrutiny. What really jumped out at you about how she reflects on those years?
I think what's really interesting is how she manages to, balance things out. She talks about the glamorous side, but also the real challenges of that lifestyle. It's not all, parties and fancy events.
Well, there's going to be a lot more to it than that.
Yeah. Exactly. She talks about the joys of motherhood, which is so relatable, but also that constant pressure of always being watched, judged, especially as her husband's political career started to take off.
Oh, for sure. Things must have gotten pretty intense.
Absolutely.
And then, boom, the White House years. She spills some tea, gives us some behind-the-scenes stories, her take on being First Lady, her work with, advocating for children. But then there are these bombshells, these revelations about her personal beliefs. They're just, whoa, didn't see that coming. Especially when it comes to some of her husband's policies.
Oh, yeah, those parts definitely grabbed my attention. One of the biggest, mind-blowing things is her being pro-choice.
Right. Total curveball.
It is, especially given, Donald Trump's stance on abortion rights. He's pretty firm on that, let's just say.
Yeah, no kidding. Huge difference in views there.
Totally, and it doesn't stop there. She also straight up disagrees with the family separation policy that happened during his administration. Separating families at the border, big controversy. And her stance, not exactly towing the party line.
Man, it really makes you wonder what those conversations were like, behind closed doors.
I know, right? What was going on there?
Big mystery. But then, on the flip side, she backs her husband's claims about the 2020 election, the whole stolen election thing.
Yeah. Adds another layer of complexity to the whole narrative, doesn't it?
It really does. It's wait, so where does she actually stand on things?
It's a good reminder that public figures, even those who seem like they're on the same page all the time, especially couples, they can have totally different personal views.
Makes sense.
And trying to navigate those differences, especially when you throw in political ideologies and all that, man, that's got to be tough.
Yeah, no doubt. It definitely paints a way more nuanced picture of their relationship and, her own convictions. So I want to zoom out a bit here. Big picture. What would you say is the overall vibe, the tone of the memoir? What kind of voice is Melania projecting,
Throughout the whole thing, there's this strong sense of resilience, this independence. Like, she's really determined to stay true to herself. It's like she's saying, hey, this is my journey, and I'm not going to lose myself in all this chaos.
I like that. It's like she's holding on to her own identity, even in, one of the most high-pressure situations imaginable.
Exactly. And you see it in all these little anecdotes, like how she tried to create a sense of normalcy for her son, Baron, despite their pretty extraordinary lives.
That's a great point. Makes her seem way more human,
Wow.
not just this distant figure we see in the news and stuff. So after taking this deep dive into Melania's world, I gotta ask, what are your thoughts on how personal beliefs, like the ones she reveals, how those impact people in powerful positions? Does knowing more about her perspective, does it change how you see her time as First Lady? And hey, if you're hooked, if you want to know more, I definitely recommend checking out the memoir yourself. It's a wild ride, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
All right, well, that's all we've got for you today. Thanks for tuning in to our deep dive into Melania Trump's memoir.
See you next time.